It is Legends territory, Scotty Braun and Eric Kratz. And thank you, as always, to our MLB Players Alumni Association fam for setting up the best former player conversations in the biz. And check out baseballalumni.com for more info on your favorite former players. Quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube right now, we also appear on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify Podcasts. So check us out there as well. And now it is time to bring in the next legend. He is a recent Mets team Hall of Famer, spent most of his time with the Metropolitans, including a 1986 World Series ring. That was a pretty big deal. He's also got a ring from 1984 with the Detroit Tigers, a two-time All-Star, two-time Silver Slugger, spent a lot of time after his playing days as a coach in the minor leagues and in the major leagues. Howard Johnson swinging by Legends territory. Hojo, great to see you. How's everything going in life?
Morning, guys. Life is good. It's busy, but it's been good. Just staying busy, that's for sure.
You know what's amazing, Kratzy? I'm looking at the two World Series titles. You had those two rings by age 25, correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
That's
happened
good living.
early, happened quick. That is good living. But something happened after that because I didn't get any more.
Yeah, you got two more than almost everyone else in the world.
That's true. That's true. It's weird though when you get them early like that. It was fortunate for me. I mean, the Tiger team was incredible when I got over there. Just thinking about, because there's been a lot of talk last couple years about the two teams, and when you compare them player wise, style of play, how they won games, it was it was pretty much a stroke of luck that I was on that team because I was the last guy to make it, and I ended up getting some playing time that year in '84. But the veterans that we had, it was just the right combination at the right time. Because after that, the team was competitive, but the pitching was getting older, and that was the main driver behind them trading me to the Mets.
You were young during those two championships. Would you have rather traded those two championships for two championships later on when you were, All-Star, Silver Slugger, or as like some of those leaders that were on those teams, like if you were playing that role, would you rather have had those championships then or when you had them?
That's a great question. Never been asked that before, but I would say I think it's better to get them early just because it gives you I don't want to say formula, but it gives you the plan, so to speak, of how to win a game in the major leagues. And there's different ways to do it, but I think the Tigers had a real good formula with, scoring very early in the game with our top three guys between, Whitaker, Trammell, Gibson. That was a run usually almost every day early on. And by the time that trio was back around for the third or fourth time through the line, the rotation, we could score more. So, our pitching was solid. I think our starting pitching wasn't as deep as the Mets was, but the guys that we had, I think, were extremely dominant for both. So, it just kind of gave me an idea like what to expect, how to win. And it does do a lot as far as your mental preparation. I think you always feel like you have some level of confidence that you know how to win. And I think that's the thing that is hard to explain. And that's why being on a winning team is so valuable, because it's that mental edge that you get having gone through that a couple of times.
So you're saying winning matters. So maybe we should send this out to all the big league teams that are not trying to win. But all that to say, then in '87, after you guys won, you started taking off. Were you sitting there going, okay, like, dude, I'm raking now? Like, okay, we're going to win. How many more championships did you think you were going to win in your career? Whether you're with the Mets or not, how many more, like, after you won two, were you like, oh, yeah, I'll get X amount?
I actually thought I was going to be on a couple more. I thought '88 we should have won for sure. The Dodgers got very hot there at the right time. We only lost them one time all year. I think we won 11 out of 12. against LA, and which is an incredible feat considering they had to win the whole thing, and they swept through Oakland, who was a kind of a juggernaut. It was I thought I was going to get more, but the way it works is like you're playing and you just take every year separate. I never really thought, okay, well, now that I've won twice early, that I'm going to win a lot more. I think you just look at it each year separate, and you just kind of build off of that. We never really had the team after that I felt like it had the tools to win, with regards to pitching and just the right position players. It was just kind of a hodgepodge after that. So that's kind of the way the team went, kind of up and down, just not really consistent.
I want to go back to what Kratz said for a sec because, yeah, it's amazing when teams try. So does tanking nowadays in baseball drive you nuts because you wipe out a generation of fans? Like, oh, great, we sucked for 6 years, got draft picks, now we're going to be good for 6 years. But can't you figure out both?
Should be able to figure out both. It doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult. I think the promotion of individual players over the years with ESPN, all the online stuff, there's a lot of individual, attention paid to players. I think that does take attention off the team in a way. Because when you grow up as a kid, I mean, you have your favorite players, but, you had your favorite teams. You had your teams that you rooted for regardless. I was a, Tampa Bay Bucks fan when I was a kid. I grew up in Clearwater, and I love the Bucks. I still do. And, I knew some of the players, but it wasn't like it is now where everything's out in your face all the time. And I just love the team. And it's the same way in New York. I think there's fans that love the team, and it's all around the game, any sport really. So if you kill a season because you're going to tank, to get a little higher draft pick so you can draft the pitcher that may or may not make it, probably going to get TJ at some point. I don't like that. I think that's kind of I don't want to say cop out, but I just think it's kind of they can hide from that. It's too convenient of an excuse to tank games, and in all sports really, just to get a draft pick. I don't get it.
So you're killing it as fans, but as players, how do you feel like? What do you feel like the players feel like in those times?
Horrible. I wouldn't call this situation I'm going to describe now as tanking, but we had an opportunity, I believe, in 2009. No, 2008. Excuse me, 2008. I think we were a couple games up late in the season, and we had seen a lead like similar to 2007. We had a big lead and kind of saw it shrink. 2008, the same thing was happening. We were losing the lead in the division, and we had glaring weaknesses in our bullpen. We really had no closer. I can't even tell you the guy's name that ended up closing games at the end, but we were really struggling, and we really wanted to get another pitcher. We needed it badly. I mean, if we would have gotten a decent reliever for the month of September, we would have won our division, I believe, hands down, and I swear by that. And they even asked us. They had meetings with us, the front office, and there was a lot of information out there, and we just kind of settled on a couple of guys. We thought, yeah, these would be the ones we want to try to grab if we could, and finances really wasn't an issue, but nothing ever happened. They never made one trade at the trade deadline, or any of the post deadline trades. You could have picked up a guy for really nothing down the stretch. We didn't get it, and we ended up really pissing away a lead that we should have held on to. And it was very, very frustrating as a coach because the guys played so well all year. We really felt that we had a team that could go, but that's how good we were offensively. But our bullpen was just in tatters, and we couldn't finish a game. So we ended up collapsing.
Yeah, and you look at the team that ended up coming out of the East. That was Phillies were coming out of the East during that time, and they, you guys were always neck and neck. How is that when that doesn't happen at the trade deadline?
Yep.
does that bring the team together more, or does that like deflate the team? And I know you're a coach, not a player, but in that situation, but what is that dynamic like?
That's a good question. I want to say it's deflating because players when they get down to September, I mean it's a long season, so you get down to the finish line and you want to finish strong. As every player wants to do that, except the tanking teams, they don't. But players do. They want to finish strong. Team wants to finish strong as a group. But when you don't get the players or a player that you thought maybe you would get, um, certain guys are going to feel anxiety because they don't want to be the one traded or they don't want to be the one let go. But I think as a whole, I think it deflates your locker room when that doesn't happen. And when the exact opposite happens, when you do get that player, regardless of the sport, if you add the right guy down the stretch, you get an uptick from it. You get lifted up from it. It's going to help you mentally. And in a game where mental capacity and mental awareness is so huge, you damage it a little bit or you help it a little bit, it can pay real dividends quickly. And it does a lot for the fan base. I mean, the fan base absolutely gets deflated when something doesn't happen. And so when it does happen, when you do get that player, it's like, wow, that's awesome. You're going for it, and you want that message sent all the time because you want to feel like your front office or the organization is 100% in the fight with you. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, we're standing out here naked on our own. So we're gonna bust our butts, regardless, as hard as we can play, try to get the thing done, get to the finish line. But I mean, we're professionals. That's what we do. But still, I think from an emotional standpoint, it's a kind of a gut punch.
So you were talking about superstars coming on, ESPN really promoting superstars. The superstar I think of from '86 team is Doc, just absolutely hosing fools on the mound. Like you were out there, you had front row seat to see him do his thing in New York City for a World Series aspiring team. What was that like to see that?
Well, it was electric every time Doc took the mound. It was just the anticipation, of what he was going to do. And I've always said there's two guys. I've told this to many people. There's two guys that if my life depended on it, like if they were going to lose the game and if we lost, they were going to kill me, then I'd want to have Dwight Gooden on the mound or Jack Morris. Either one of those two guys. They were absolutely lights out back then. The best big game pitcher I ever saw. And I know there's going to be other guys people think of, but for me, those are the two that really stood out in my career. And every time Doc took the mound, I mean, it was just, how many strikeouts is he going to get? And if you were going to get him, it had to be early. It wasn't going to be later in the ball game. It was going to be the first inning maybe. But he was just dominant. I just remember watching, high-end quality major league future Hall of Fame hitters absolutely just melt like ice cream in the box when he was on the mound because it was just unbelievable. When he got on a roll, it just had no shot, no chance. Those guys had no chance to hit, and when it was out, it was like a day off out there just watching him. It was fun. And we just wanted to get back in the dugout and hit and score a couple runs and basically have fun the rest of the game. It was that's the way it felt.
What were they like as people in terms of when you came across them in your career and how they were handling all of the success and all of the melting of hitters?
Yeah, that's a good point. So they were get it. They were cool. So they were very good. They were good teammates, good in the locker room, and they were always talking and stuff. Jack would talk quite a bit. I mean, he was a little bit more veteran than Doc was at the time, but when I was over there, so he was more of a locker room presence than Doc was. Doc was content just to kind of hang out, do his thing. I mean, he's from Tampa. And we used to talk about the Bucks all the time, and we talked football and talked food and all that. And he loved to eat, that guy, and so just normal guy in the locker room. And Jack was a little bit more of kind of a clubhouse leader in a way. I mean, certainly leader of the pitching staff. We didn't have that. We didn't have the typical like captain of the pitching staff that I think Jack was. Jack was that guy in Detroit, and Doc was just a young guy trying to make his mark, and just was dominant. He knew it, and we knew it, and just as down to earth the guys you could get at that point. And of course, we didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, but with the drugs and stuff. But for most of his career with the Mets, he was pretty good.
But you're saying Jack would talk a lot, talk like the leader, or he would talk smack? The way you said it kind of sounded like he would he was confident and would talk trash to dudes.
Well, I mean, I think I don't know if it was talking smack or talking trash, but it was just more of a certain confidence that he had in himself, which is great. I mean, I thought it was awesome. But I think some guys on certain days, I won't say every day, but some days, maybe they're just in a bad mood, or they just don't want to be, they don't want nothing. They want to be left alone, and which is fine. That's the locker room. You have that all the time. So, Doc was just always a little bit different than Jack. Jack was a little bit more like every now and then just didn't want to be hanging around. But with Doc, it was always like, hey, let's do some other, let's talk some more, let's do some, laugh some more. So just different personalities. But when they took the mound, that's who I wanted out there.
All right, so we're not holding a gun to you, but you do have to pick now. You chose two. You can't choose two. You got to choose one. Only one can start.
Oh man, only one can start. Well, I'll take the '86 Doc to start for my life. How about that?
Okay.
I've never been asked that about making a choice, so that's a good one. It's a tough question because I don't want to offend either guy.
Yeah.
It's really a tie, but I mean, if I had to pick one, I guess it'd have to be Doc from the '86 team.
We don't take ties. We don't take ties.
No. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to make the choice.
You got to pick, man. You got to pick. I get it. All right.
Absolutely.
I'll be prepared next time. Now I may say Jack another day.
That's fair.
Right now,
that's fair.
Doc.
Today you said Doc.
That's right.
All right. So take us through. I know you've talked a lot about 1986 in life. So take us through for you the emotional roller coaster that it was. Of course, the drama behind the scenes has been well documented, and also the fun behind the scenes has been well documented. Like, what are some of the things that stand out that when you're sitting back with buddies having drinks, you make sure that you point out?
Well, I was just in New York over the weekends. Darryl Strawberry had a charity tournament, golf tournament, and a bunch of the '86 guys were there, including Doc was there. So it was cool. I mean, I never had a team. Detroit was pretty close. I mean, anytime you win, you're gonna think your team was really close. But I thought the Mets team was just a different kind of close, where everybody was pulling the same direction. We had zero, and in Detroit too, we had no problems there. But everybody was pulling the same direction. There was no issues with each other, nothing with management. Davey, the coaching staff, nothing. Everything was smooth, and it bled over into the bus rides and post game stuff. Not that now I have to think about this because nowadays post game celebrations are like, forget about it. It's a production now when guys go into the locker room after a simple win or a home run or whatever. It's just amazing what guys can do now. And I can't be the only one that drives crazy, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we live in the era, but there was none of that kind of celebration with either team, with the Tigers or the Mets. And even to this day, talking to guys, they always bring it up. And that's why I bring it up, because somebody was talking to me on Monday about that very thing, about the celebration guys have now and all this and that, and just, I don't know, it just rubs the older guys the wrong way. But we kind of grew up in an era where it's act like you did it before, and not go all crazy. But it's all good. I understand what the era we live in. But just celebrations, we get to the plane, card games would start, some of the guys drinking or whatever. So there was just always a lot of activity going on with that team, and it was fun to be around it.
Let me present you the case then from the generation playing now. So when you were playing during that run, right? Baseball was king, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
So
was.
now what's king?
Football.
Football's king. And in my mind, MLB has not kept up with the times, and it seems like the players are trying to keep up with the times by saying this generation of fan needs more. They need more emotion. They need more of a storyline to follow. They need more spice. And baseball can't just play itself out and be this beautiful game and win overall fans. There's so much more competition. So do you feel like that helps the cause now to keep the game at a status of being one of the top sports? Because football, in my mind, basketball, in the way that the drama, the celebrating, the emotion, the openness of players connecting with fans about basically everything going on in their lives, that to me is the difference. 'Cause I'm with you. I mean, I grew up watching a different game of baseball, but I don't know if that brand exists now. I think people really go, well, this is kind of lame. I'm just watching the game, and they haven't really marketed to me.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on your level, like how much you really, love the game, or you love the stuff the fluff, the extra stuff. Whenever you take away from, you put a focus on something other than the actual game itself, I think that it takes away from the game. If you watch if you ever watch on MLB Network or something, or anywhere really for that matter, older games, older World Series games, older playoff games, older anytime, like, big games that show up, and you watch the pace of the game, that's what people like. They like the pace of the game. They want guys to be, attacking all the time. They want, they don't mind guys getting hit if that's what it takes. There's battles, there's fights, there's, guys would charge them out. I mean, there's different things. You can't do that anymore, really. They find guys out of that now. They just take their money, and that's the disincentive to do that. So now they have to replace that with something else. So now it's just crazy celebration. I mean, pitchers and hitters, and it is what it is. I don't want to sound like an old man, but geez, I mean, we got to calm it down a little bit. It just seems like we're off the chain. I mean, the NFL, as popular as they are, and I love the NFL and the celebrations that they have, I mean, they can get out of hand. I'm not a fan of them all running down as a team and doing something in the end zone. I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather just see the guy do something. But what am I going to do? I'm still going to watch it because I love the game. That's what I watch the game for. So from my perspective, to me, that's the most important thing, is the game itself. And all the other stuff, it's there. I mean, it can be entertaining, but it's not why I tune in. And I think that's why baseball can get caught in that, because they lose fans. They have gone through a period where they lost some fans and popularity. Although the game at the youth level is exploding, the game at the highest level is not.
And I think you nailed it on the pace, which has definitely been much better this year, of course, because it was getting so slow. Players were taking advantage of, we don't have timeouts, we don't have limits on clocks on anything. All right, let's just take forever to do everything. So I like that part. The other part that stood out to me is the brawls. I mean, sure, they're not good for your face, for your body, but they were entertaining as hell. And I don't know what the exact numbers are, but there were way more of them. And also, it's hard to even truly document, because now bench is still clear, I would say, at least once a week or two, but nothing happens. Literally nothing happens. Ever. So why even clear? Why even clear the benches? Just sit down, chirp a little, and move on. Nobody throws punches. Nobody does anything, which, hey, great. I mean, we're not trying to get everyone's, skulls crushed. But at the same time, that happened all the time when you were playing, right? How many fights did you get involved in?
Oh, we were multiple fights during the year, 5, 6, 7. That's a lot. I mean, in baseball, that's a lot. There'd maybe be 3 or 4 that were pretty pretty good. I mean, they were entertaining to watch. And then there was several that were just not quite to that level, but they were still entertaining. But the threat of that being there was always, it was present. And so, not saying that's why fans watch the game, but it is a part of the game. It's part of the game. It's not, intimidation is part of the game. In the NFL, it's part of the game. That's the only issue that people have nowadays. And I'm all for player safety, but at some point, and I can't compare baseball to football because football is like a train wreck or a car wreck every day. But the violence and the impact is what draws people in. There's other stuff too, but I mean that's part of it, right? The battle in the trenches. That's why it's so good. In basketball, there's just nothing. How about simply arguing with the umpire? The manager cannot. There's no arguing. There's no coming out. There's none of that happening. And fans used to love watching that as part of the game, right? You would get it off your chest and go get at the umpire. Now you just say, okay, well let's go to the replay. Close play, replay, call them, and then you get the yes, no, and you challenge or not. And so there's like, okay, well now you can prove your case almost immediately. There's no arguing, and that's the game is just kind of mellowed in that way, and I think people see it. Maybe not the youth, I don't know, but I think people that that have the money, they see it. I mean, they realize it. It's just different. Not saying it's not a great game. It's still a great game, but the other stuff can get in the way. The lack of it can leave a void, I think, that's trying to be filled.
If you're having 5 to 7 fights a year, I'm not going to make you choose which one is your craziest.
Yeah, so, don't make me choose.
So I'm going to choose. So I'm going to choose. I want to hear your point of view from the Ray Knight, Eric Davis fight, because for me that was epic. I forget how old I was. I was below 10 years old, but it was to see that. I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, these guys are going to kill each other. There's dust flying. But I want your point of view from that fight.
Well, I had gone into shortstop, I think the inning before that. So, when the Reds back then were incredibly good. I mean, they were really a good team. They ended up winning, I think, a couple years later, but they had a good ball club. I mean, we had a lot of respect for them. Eric Davis, Dave Parker, all those guys. I know I'm missing some, but they had a good team, and we respected them a lot. And then, we were having that kind of a season in '86, and there was a lot of activity going on. I think Pete Rose might have been still involved at that point. I don't remember on all that clearly, but yeah. So Eric slides into third base. He's kind of a pop-up slide, not dirty or anything, but just Ray was a former Gold Gloves guy, so he was very familiar with punching, and Eric kind of slid into him, and it was just that time of the game. It was really late. I don't remember if the game was tied or what the score was, but that might have been the winning run. And they just reacted. I mean, Ray, he was having a great season, and he just pushed all the right buttons that year, and he had it, so he boom, popped him, and it was on at that point. It was just like flat out. And we fought the Reds a lot. So if I did have to nail one thing down, that was the one team that we fought the most, was Cincinnati. Second team would be Pittsburgh, but Cincinnati would always drill guys, and we would always fight them, and that's just the way it was. So it was just kind of an extension of the other fights, '86. So yeah, being a shortstop, seeing it all right there. My goal is just to get in the middle, start trying to pull guys away, making sure you're not getting popped in the process, which happens. It's going to happen, or end up at the bottom of the pile. You don't want to be that guy. So you're trying to help your guys by pulling them off. Really,
you feel like greenies had something to do with that, because I was coming into the big leagues as greenies were coming out, but in the minor leagues when I was playing, like guys would take greenies, and it was like it would turn guys around. I mean, not saying like one specific person had them, but guys would have them day game. You're you're just a different person. Do you feel like that had something to do with the fights?
100%. I mean, that's sure that's part of it. Because, if you could give guys, you know, downers and things and bring them down, you give them uppers and stuff, it's gonna put them through the roof. Didn't they give that to guys in the military before they went to fight? So it was just one of those things where it was just a pill that guys, not everybody took them, but it was out there. It was widespread available to players, because you're playing every day. And I always tell people when they ask me about drugs and all that stuff, I go, steroids really isn't about, strength as much as it is about recovery. Because I remember talking to the guys that I saw on my team, like Lenny, he got big, he got big and strong and started hitting homers, but it was really about recovery for him. Barry Bonds, I remember watching him on TV, and just, travel is what gets guys out of the game. So they take stuff for that. And when you're traveling at night, from one place to another, you get in at 2 or 3 in the morning, you've got to beat the field again. It's just a long day. It's a short night. You've got to be ready. And sometimes mentally, guys feel like they needed that help. Okay. Like think of a cup of coffee, but 100 times that. So you're just, I don't know, makes you feel like you have an edge. Whenever I took them, very rarely I took greenies, but when I did, it made me too hyper, so I just stayed off of it because I felt too good. I felt too wired up, too amped, so I stopped. And I could always tell when I was playing, like in Chicago, we'd go there, it was a day game, and I love playing in the day games. But the pitchers on the mound, because it was hot, wind's blowing out usually, summertime, they're not taking anything for it, and I could just tell they didn't want to be out there. So I figure I had a little bit of an advantage at that point. And so I liked going out there, as he used to say, naked and playing the game. And that's I mean, it's gone now. It's over. I mean, I don't think there's, besides, like you said, the Adderall, that's the legalized version, I guess. But
so what's you were accused of using the corked bat,
Mm-hmm.
So there's like different stuff like that from plenty of guys' careers. What do you think is you've talked a lot about the mental side. Is there a mental side of thinking, okay, I have a corked bat, or do you think there's more of a mental, advantage to taking steroids? Which is there a level there, or is it just kind of the whole, like, I just want the advantage that I can get?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the driver. It's really whatever advantage you can get. That's kind of what you learn growing up, that pitchers were going to cheat, hitters were going to do things. You're looking for signs, you're doing different things. Of course, Houston took it to a different level with the garbage can stuff, but don't think for a second that nobody thought about that, because as a hitting coach, we go to the video room, I'm looking for pitchers. I'm looking at their deliveries between innings, and I'm trying to pick stuff up, So everybody's trying to get an advantage. They're still trying to get advantages now. So I don't think people have stopped doing that. But, not having done either one, I didn't do steroids, didn't cork the bat. But any kind of advantage you feel like you can gain mentally, I think you try to get it. Physically, that's harder. I think you just try to, guys lift weights, guys work out during the season to get strong, to stay strong. I think it has its physical help, of course, but that's obvious. But I think that the underlying assist is the mental side. When you know that you feel strong, that you feel good, that your body can handle the wear and tear, mentally that helps. With regards to the cork bat, I think they took my bat out of the game 6 or 7 times after a home run, and they'd ship it off to New York. I wouldn't see it till the next day, hopefully. And that was it. So they took my bats out, and every one of them passed. So there was nothing, no issue with that. But it was just one of those things where I think the mental side can be a big advantage also. On the other end, you could, like other teams, managers would, well, Whitey told me this in the hallway at Shea Stadium on the way out. He goes, I'm just trying to get in your head. I'm just trying to disrupt your mindset. And I go, oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. But you can't. And, it's one of those things. So, yeah, it's just a mental game at that point, at that level. Physical, there's certainly a factor, but it's not as much as people think.
I would have been like, oh, you want to see this bat? All natural, baby. You want to see these
forearms,
muscles?
Man.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
Why were they picking on you?
Because I was only like 5'10", 5'11". I hit homers, I stole bases. That's what I did. And that was just the way I played. I mean, I wasn't trying to hit homers, but that was just a part of my game. I was really a guy who wanted to get on and steal bases. But yeah, it's just, you just do what you can. You try to be a disruptor. That's what I learned when I was a young child. I read in that baseball digest, and you just, if you get on base, make them pay. And that was my mantra. That's what I thought about every day. So that's the way I did it.
So I want to ask you about your current status with the New York Mets, because Mets fans love you.
Thank you.
Do you feel like the accessibility is much more there now with Steve Cohen leading the way? It felt like from day one, the new ownership group comes in and says, hey, let's connect Mets fans to the glory days. Have you seen notable differences in that regard?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve Cohen has been front and center, him and his wife, Alex. They've been front and center trying to get the older generation of Met players and the newer generation of Met fans together. Because that's how you build dynasties that last year after year after year. That you build a legacy when you connect to the past. And, good, bad, or indifferent. It is what it, past is what it is. And so Steve has done a great job. His wife has done a great job bringing back players for whether it's appearances during the season, off season, podcasts, different things. We had Old Timers Day last year, which was awesome. This year we had the Hall of Fame induction there, which was awesome. So there's a lot of things going on, and I think that fans appreciate that. Makes them feel good. It makes them feel like the team that they've been rooting for, mattered back then, and people want to experience that as much as they possibly can. And the only way to do that is to bring players back in. You can only show so many highlights and videos. They want to see what the guys are, how they look, how we stumble across the grass now. They want to see us, how old we are, and it's fun. It's fun to be around. I mean, there's a camaraderie there, and I think the fans can see that.
And you're a Mets Hall of Famer now, which is awesome. So how did that process go? Yeah, congratulations on that. And how did that process go? And also, why do you think that, other ownership groups wouldn't be interested in what you're just talking about? Like there's literally zero downside. It's not like they're saying, oh, we're going to throw them on the field or we're going to have them, influence our players or whatever. It's mostly a fan-oriented situation so that, if a team has not had a ton of consistent winning, they can look back to when there were glorious times for the fan base.
Yeah, and if you look at every franchise, there's going to be eras in there that were like the happy days for those franchises. I mean, every one of them. You can go back and you could find pieces of time that for like 5 years or 10 years that these guys were dominant. And yeah, it's good to connect with that because it gives you backbone. It gives you something to think about. Like, you want to be part of that history, a part of that legacy. We're not starting from scratch. There's history behind us that proves that this organization can win, or they can be very, very competitive. And it, like you said, it costs almost nothing to connect with that. And maybe because the game is, and I want to say that's probably part of the reason why things have, kind of went a little bit south as far as with fans and with some of the franchises. There hasn't been enough of that. And the more you get back to doing that, like more that these big markets connect with the older players and the fans from today, I think that's a good thing. People look at me. I was at the golf tournament, and there's the little kids of these guys I'm playing golf with. They're kids, and they come up to me and they say, "Oh man," they're talking about the dads. They're saying, "Oh man, I was a huge fan of yours when you were playing." And the little kids looking at me like, "This guy actually played Major League Baseball," and that's what they're thinking, right? They're just little kids; they don't know. And so, but that's how you connect the game from generation to generation. And I love it. I just love being around people who appreciate the way we played the game back in the day. And I'm sure that players back then may be a little bit more accessible than they are today. I think today there's just so much social media. There's just so much out there. It's hard for players to keep up.
Yeah,
so
they'd
rather take a step back and not have to worry about it at all, if it's possible. But that's just not going to happen.
We need so much more of humanizing players, though, which obviously we're doing here, and we do on our other show, Foul Territory, too, because otherwise you can't connect. It's hard to connect with a robot because humans aren't robots. So I like it a lot. We appreciate the time, Hojo. This was awesome, and props to the MLB Players Alumni Association for lining all these interviews up. And you can hit up baseballalumni.com for more information on your favorite former players. If you want to listen to this, if you're watching it, it's on Apple and Spotify as well. Hojo, great to talk to you, man. Good to see you.
It's good to see you guys anytime. Okay. I enjoy connecting and talking about baseball and, pulling for the Mets. So we'll see what happens this year. They got a long way to go, but
yeah,
got to keep the faith, man. It's one thing about Met fans. They suffered through some stuff. So see what they got.
They need this. 30 minutes of therapy to just kind of relax and think back to the good times. So
exactly.
I'm with you.
They're coming.
That's right.
Good times are coming.